Alright folks, how's it going? I've been having some issues with my bike recently where the throttle sticks a little bit. So what we're going to do is figure out what's going on there and hopefully fix it. Let's just have a closer look then. So yeah, this is, whenever you twist it, see the way it doesn't snap back? You know, it does go back, it does get there, but it's slow. And interestingly enough, when the bike's warm, when things warm up, it doesn't do that and it snaps back properly, but the colder it gets, the worse it gets. And I've been out on it earlier today, so it's still not completely cooled down, and that's why it's not going super slow. It does go slower than that sometimes. So really, I mean, there's not really a whole lot that could be the problems here, so it should be very easy to figure it out. I figure it's probably the throttle cables themselves, which go from here down to the throttle bodies. And I've actually bought some new cables to stick on because I'm pretty sure that's going to be it. But I have had this problem, a similar problem, and it's been caused by something else. It's really, really simple to fix. So if you're checking out this video and you're having this same problem, the first thing to check is the grips, especially if you've got aftermarket grips on it. And if we zoom in here, see the end of it here where it like comes to your bar end? If you put aftermarket grips on, sometimes this rubber bit can come like further down here and it rubs against the bar end, and that's what's causing the friction that's stopping your throttle from going back. To fix that, you can just loosen this assembly ever so slightly and push it all up like just a millimeter and give yourself some space. Some people loosen the bar ends, but like you're just going to lose your bar end if you do that, so wouldn't recommend that. Sometimes people cut here as well, but really when I had this issue, I just moved this a millimeter or two that way. That meant that there was space in between the bar end and the end of the grip here, and that friction was gone, and that fixed the problem. So if you're having this issue, then just check that first of all, because it's super easy to fix, and that could well be it. If that doesn't fix the problem, then it's likely the throttle cables or the little spring imaging that connects to on the throttle bodies itself. So we're going to have to strip things down to have a look at that. This being a 2006 R6 means that if you want to do the simplest little thing on it, you've got to take all the fairing off every single time. So that's a bit of a pain. It's just the way it is. And I figured because I'm doing that, then I'm probably going to do a wee oil change at the same time, because again, the fairing's got to come off for that. So why not do that while we're here? I've only done about 2,500 miles, I think, since the last oil change, but that's the way I'm going to do it with this bike, to be honest. I'm just going to do it every 2,500 miles or so. So yeah, good timing while we're getting all that stuff off anyway. Might as well do the oil at the same time. Yeah, as I said, it's a pain, this bike, because the fairing is just, to get at anything, the fairing's got to come off, and it's not difficult or anything, it's just a pain. So yeah, let's get that done. Alright, we're back at day 2. It's getting a wee bit dark. Yesterday evening, realised this was going to take a bit longer than I expected. So yeah, we're back for day 2. It's a lovely raining afternoon stroke evening here. It's going to rain all day, so get used to that sound in the background. Because it's a day later, because the bike's had a while to cool down, you can see this issue a little bit more now. So this is the throttle. See, it is returning, but that's not good enough. And it's actually, that is a real problem when you're riding, it's not safe at all. It needs sorted out. If we just take a quick look then, so these are the throttle bodies here. Now we've got our computer controlled throttle, which is why there's a motor here. In the past, before this, you twist the throttle here, and we can see this little part moving. Right, and what that would have done would have been to open these butterfly valves in the throttle bodies to control the amount of air that goes in. But because this is a computer controlled throttle now, this motor controls these valves. So instead of them being directly connected to this and your throttle is connected to that, now we've got a motor on here. So the question is, what exactly is the problem here? And there's two things that it could be. So either this thing here is resistant, and then when it warms up, it's not. So it could be this, or the resistance could be in the throttle cables itself. I think it's the throttle cables, which is why I've gone and bought a new one. It could potentially be that. To get in there and to get closer to it, I'm going to have to remove the fairing, so I'm going to do that now. We might end up having to take the throttle bodies out of the bike. That's okay. I can do that if we have to. But what I'm going to do first of all is remove the fairing. I'm going to get the throttle cables hopefully removed, and then we can test that. You know, we can give that little thing a twist, see if the problem's there or in the cables itself. That's going to tell us the answer. So yeah, everything we do in this bike, the fairing needs to be removed, so let's get stuck in and get that done. Right then, so we're going to need to take the throttle body out, which means removing all of this bit here. Now, this is a bit more complicated than it was in the past because we have our electronic throttle control system, and we've also got fuel injection. So the first thing we're going to do is remove this. I've already removed some of these lines, but that's the final one, the final fuel line. That connects from there to the fuel tank. We'll just put that out of the way. And if we have a closer look in here now, so we've still got a few connections. We've got this one here that goes into the motor. We've got another one here, which is probably the throttle position sensor, I would have thought. Yeah, that looks like about, this here as well. Will need to be disconnected at this connection here. So I have to get these connections removed. Then we'll need to loosen some of these, see these here, these rings that go around to tighten this and keep it in place. They don't look like they're in great condition, to be honest. It's a little bit dirty in here, so this will be a good opportunity to clean all this out at the same time. So I thought it was the throttle cables, but actually it's this here. So this should twist back, right? When you pull the throttle, that twists that round, and then this should twist back. It should snap back. But see here, whenever we twist it, like that's it, open now. See the way that's going back so slowly? So that's why our throttle doesn't snap back. That's why it sorts itself out when it gets warmer. Throttle cables aren't going to do any good. We need to figure out what's going on inside here. Probably just needs a wee bit of a clean. So let's get stuck in. So we're going to remove this bit to start off with. These are Torx. Brilliant. Thankfully I have some of these. I always find it really annoying though when why are we using Torx all of a sudden? Which I don't really like, to be honest. I think they're like flaky. I'm not really a big fan of them. But either way, I don't really care. It's just like, if you're going to use Torx, use Torx. If you're going to use Allen keys, use Allen keys. But don't, sometimes it feels like it's like every opportunity to use something different, to use it. And it's like, different size screws and all. See that? And this is the problem with Torx here. Like, I can't get that in properly. And I'm going to end up stripping it. Like not all three of those. None of them go in properly. And I'm gonna, you know, obviously I don't want to strip it, so. And you know, I think there'd be less chance of stripping it if it was an actual Allen key and not one of these flipping Torx things. So yeah, I don't like them. I don't like them because it's unnecessary complication, and I don't like them because I think they're quite easily stripped. You know, I don't think you get the tool in there just as well as you would with an Allen key, and yeah, it's not good. So anyway, when you can't have screws, when you can't get screws out, what you want to do is smother them in penetrant. It's not quite WD-40, it's slightly different, penetrating. You know, this stuff is just going to work its way down in there and hopefully loosen these up so we can get in. A little squirt of this on that spring would probably fix it, to be honest, but might not fix it. You know, we'd only be a temporary solution. We don't want that. We want it to be fixed properly. So, see, the end of my tool there has become like kind of, you know, it's not good. Don't like them. Anyway, so let's take a look back in here while we're here. See, there's a fair bit of dirt around here. Oh shit! I just poked that dead fly down into the engine. I was just about to say, one of the things you need to be careful about whenever you've got this off is that you don't want stuff going down here into the engine. Unfortunately, you can't see it, but there was a dead fly there and I've just poked it in. So I don't think the engine would like a dead fly being in there and compressed with the fuel. Gonna have to get that out. Going to give it a bit of a clean around here while I'm here and while I've got access to this, and let's see if we can fish that fly out. Actually quite surprised by the amount of crap that there is in here. You know, this area is like underneath the throttle body, so generally you can't really get anywhere near it, but it has managed to accumulate a fair bit of debris. Okay, that looks much better. We'll just cover those up with that while we're trying to sort out the throttles. And let's come back over here then and see if we can make any progress on these. I'm really worried about these now because, you know, I really don't want to strip them. I think that's partly to do with the tool. Oh, there we go. Movement on that one. Movement on that one. You hear them click though? You know, that means they have bound, you know, because they've been like that for so long. That click's just that wee bond breaking. WD-40 penetrating oil doing its thing, and there's the third one. Right, okay, happy days. Now those two screws are different lengths so far. And the third one's a different length as well, so fairly easy to remember what's going on there, but like, yeah. And see there, like that should snap back. It's just a build-up of crap, you know. Actually, this is probably going to be as good as anything to try and clean all this off. And yeah, if you're ever working on bikes or anything like that, always keep your old toothbrushes. Put that out of the way. And don't put your Canon WD-40 in front of your camera, and also keep your old toothbrushes because they're so useful for stuff like this. So really just gonna, this is just an initial clean on this. Remove as much of this crap as we can. And really, I want to give the whole thing a good clean while I've got it off. You know, why not? Why not just get it all nice and perfect before we put it back on? So now, obviously, I don't want to get the connectors wet whenever I do that. So my theory now is that this bar that goes into the throttle position sensor, this seems to be a bit stiff, and I think maybe that's where all the issues are coming from. Before I take the throttle position sensor off, I'm just going to have a quick look in here, and you can see there's just little bits of detritus in this area. So I just want to try and, if I can, just kind of clean that out a little bit. Okay, you can see that that is still very, very stiff. I need the pliers to even move it. So, it seems to be, now the problem is I'm not really sure, you know, how stiff that's supposed to be. It can't be too stiff that the spring can't return it back, and I think that's what's happening. Yeah, it's hard to really tell just by touching it if there's an actual problem there or not. So what that means really is that I'm going to have to take off this and see where that gets us really. So for that I need a smaller wrench. Yeah, so I don't think there's a whole lot I can really do about this. I'm going to get some penetrating oil and wax it in there and see what that does. So I want it to kind of sink down in there. So we're going to pop it in like that. Put some in there. And really now we just need to give that you know, we'll give it 20 minutes or so to sort itself out. So now we've given that some time to kind of do its thing, and I do think, it's hard to tell, but I do think this is a little bit easier to turn now. A little bit. Yeah, so what I'm going to do anyway, I'm going to get the position sensor back on. Right, okay. So that's got back on, and now for the tricky bit, which is to rebuild all this stuff, and I have no idea how it's supposed to go. So thankfully I took some pictures earlier. Okay, so I'm going to try and rebuild this thing. I've got some of the pictures to take up on my screens here, so I've got a good point of reference. And yeah, we're just going to have to try and get this back together.
A few moments later.
Okay, I think that means it's time to take a break. Okay, so we've got it back together again. I had to switch the camera off there. I was getting really frustrated with this. It's an absolute pain in the ass if you're going to try and deal with this, by the way. So just be aware of that. I'm not really that happy with the way that this spring is kind of sitting here. It was neater originally when it was on there. I can't really do anything about it. Doesn't seem to affect function. The important thing now is that is no longer sticking and it clicks right back. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the problem was. There was nothing that I specifically did to fix it, other than just take it apart. There was probably just little bits of dirt and grime into the mechanism all over the place. Works now, so that's really all that matters. But yeah, if you can avoid going near this, then do so. It's a pain to get that back together. Anytime you're working with springs, it's always a bit tricky. This was no exception to it. Really frustrated by that whole process. There has been much swearing and gnashing of teeth going on while I've been doing this. Just a nice relief to get there in the end. Okay, we're back. So you can see now we fixed the little problem with the throttle control. Snaps back the way it should. Giving these a nice clean at the same time. We've given a wee bit of clean inside the bike as well. So now it turns out that you know, what we can see now is that the throttle cables weren't actually the problem at all, because what we've done now is fixed it on the bike. I think I'm going to change the throttle cables anyway, because they will become an issue at some point, and the ones that I've got are nice and new and they're really cool, and I think they're probably a little bit better than the OEM ones. So yeah, that's what we're going to do now then, is change out the throttle cables, or at least get them ready, so that we can get the throttle bodies fitted and get the cables onto them, and then we'll do adjustments from there. So these are our cables here, push and pull. You see when we move the throttle back and forward, it moves those back and forward. They're routed up through here, underneath the middle. They come out here, you can just see them, the two cables there, and they come up over the top. Little bit of adjustment here, and into this unit here. Now again, these can be a bit of a pain. Just the way it is, we're going to have to take this apart, pull the cables out of it, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, let's get that done. See, that was the top one, so you pull that around and that pulls the bottom one. So there we go. There's a little guide in here. See if I can show it to you. It'll be hard to see, but there's a little cable guide in here just there. See that little loop? So the cables go through that, underneath here. So in through the guide, and then through. Oh, it's gonna be a little tricky to get them in there, but it shouldn't be too hard once I get the steering out of the way. It's okay, right, looking good. And then they come out there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get them attached to the throttle first of all. Don't know which camera to look at. Look at that one. I'm going to get them attached to the throttle first of all, because I can never remember. See, when you get these down to this end, you've got to connect them the right way up to the throttle bodies, and I can never remember which one's which. So we'll get them connected at this end, and then we'll be able to just twist the throttle and see which ones move, and that's how we're going to know which one's the right place to go. So brake lever's a little bit in the way here, but we'll just I'll just live with that. And these are generally fairly straightforward to get in there. That one goes in like that. That one goes in like that. And then we've got like this assembly thing. Which I've never dealt with one of these before, but it does look like a fairly decent solution, to be honest. Maybe a little bit more convenient than the old one. So we get that rubber shroud out of the way, and then these just kind of like fit in. Almost. How's that? Looking good. Might need to move that up that way a little bit there. As we were saying before, you know, this is with the start of the video when we talked about this rubber thing touching here. This is what causes that, you know. So this little bracket for your, it's caused by two things. Caused by you know, this little bracket not being far enough down the handlebar, but also, you know, aftermarket grips, in particular soft rubber ones. So you want to just put, like, that's all it needs. It's 1 millimeter. Just push that up against the switch here. You can move that switch, you can move that if you need to, and just put that up against the switch. And by doing that, we're just giving ourselves a millimeter of space here so that this rubber bit is not going against the bar end, because that will cause exactly the same problem. If you don't notice it, you'll do all this stuff, you'll be pulling your hair out, and then you realize all you need to do is fix that, and it was really simple. So yeah, always check that first. Unfortunately, it wasn't that easy in this case, but there we go. So now we need to get the throttle bodies back in. And all we're going to do is line them up and put them in here, get them attached to these, tighten these up, but we want to get the cables attached first, because once you've got this in there, you just don't have the space to get anywhere near it to be able to attach anything. So you need to get them attached first, and we'll do that now. Again, this is going to be a little bit awkward. So our throttle is going to, we pull the throttle back that way, and that's what opens the throttle in that direction, right? So our first cable, we pull it and it pulls this thing around that way. So that means, and which is, so that's this one. So we need to get this cable slotted in to this little hole there, and then out like that. There we go. Okay, and then it'll attach onto the bracket here, and we'll be doing some adjustments to remove any slack. Why is that not? Just preliminary setting right now. We'll probably need to adjust that. And then for this one's a bit easier because it's over the top. And that one goes in there. And again, just a preliminary setting. Right then, so pull back. Very little slack there, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. There's ever so slightly. So just tighten that up a little bit more. And there we go. Basically no slack. Now we do have an adjustment that we can make over here, and we'll do the finer adjustment at that point, at that end. At this point, we just want to make sure that we're pretty much right. Exactly what we're looking for there. Still doesn't fit back as nice as and as quickly as I'd like it to. We've addressed the safety issue. That's the important thing. I don't think there's any way of me getting it to work any better than that without, you know, getting into here, which I can't really get into there. I might need to replace that whole thing. Not going to do that. So I think that's as good as it's going to get. And, you know, the important thing there is that, you know, a potential safety issue has been rectified, and that's, you know, ultimately why this was such an important thing to get done. So now we want to line up our throttle bodies with the 4 little tubes that they go into, and just squeeze them down in. Takes a fair bit of force to get them just right. A little bit of wiggling back and forward. And as they get down into position, you can just feel when they're right, when it stops moving about because everything's in the right place. So that's nicely in there. And then we just need to tighten up these little metal bands, which do 2 things. They hold them in, they make sure they're held there and they stay there. But also, you know, you don't want any air leaks whatsoever in any part of this system. You know, everything's got to be totally airtight. So that's fine then. We want to get our connectors connected. So now we're going to find out how badly I've messed up the throttle position. This could be bad. Okay, that sounds okay. Ooh. Something's not right. Just needed to put a little bit of fuel through the line, probably. That throttle feels a lot better. The throttle feels so much better. Brilliant, I'm really happy with it. Brilliant. That's us done. We've fixed the throttle, we've changed the oil, we've changed the oil filter, and now it's just the jigsaw puzzle of getting all the fairing back on, and that's it. So it took a bit longer than I expected to. Really happy with the result though. It's just, I mean, that's incomparably better to how it was beforehand. It's going to make a real difference to how the bike feels when riding, especially when it's like not fully warmed up. So really worth the effort. Got there in the end. Yeah, so thanks for joining me again in another adventure with my wonderful R6. Hopefully soon going to do a video on commuting on the R6. Not expecting it to be a whole lot of fun. I think it's obviously the worst idea that anybody's ever had, but you know, going to do it at least once just for a laugh, and see how we get on. So that'll be coming up soon. Keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching until the end. See you soon. Take care.